we're going to go ahead and start talking about Kawhi Leonard and his trade. I'm not going to lie, Zach. I am very glad I posted the pod that same day because I was expecting that trade to happen pretty quick, especially
Mhm.
once we got into it. Once I learned that the Raptors and the Spurs were in talks and free agency was supposed to happen literally, I think, the next day. If not, it was that same day. And if you were in the situation of the Clippers and the Raptors, you kind of wanted to get a deal done as soon as you could before free agency would open up. So it only made it sense that the Clippers went ahead and traded Kawhi Leonard to the Toronto Raptors for Brandon Ingram, Grady Dick, and one unprotected first round pick. Oh, wait, no, two, my bad. Two unprotected first round picks, one in 2031 and 2033, and a 2027 first round pick swap. So there are three first round picks involved, two unprotected, one pick swap, and two second round picks. This marks the second time Kawhi Leonard will be in Toronto. He was only there last time for about a year, and then after that, he went straight to LA. Me personally, looking back, I felt like that was more worse of a decision for Kawhi. But I'm glad to see him back in a Raptors uniform. Feel like he should have stayed there originally, in my opinion. But Zachary, what are your first thoughts on this deal?
Well, without even getting into the picks, because that's a whole separate topic, but just the fact that the Raptors get Kawhi Leonard back, they are now definitely in contention to win the East. I think they're in a better position than they were a year ago with Brandon Ingram, Grady Dick. They have Colin Murray Boyles. They still have, some guys there, Emmanuel Quickly, Jakob Pertl, who obviously isn't the best, but they have young talent there, which is good. Getting Kawhi is kind of a game changer, especially if he can have a season like he did last year. Obviously, that's another big caveat is will he stay healthy? Can he actually duplicate what he did last year again in Toronto? But I respect the Raptors a lot for even doing this move because this took some guts and you kind of have to take some risk if you're wanting to compete for a championship. And so even if it blows up in their face, say he gets hurt again, I do admire them like willing to go out and try to compete and not even compete to get out of they were never going to be in the relegation zone, but they're actually like trying to compete to win a title this year. And so that's one thing with the East too in general that I've been loving is that there's a lot of teams now who could compete, for a title. It's getting more balanced. It's not as top heavy like the West has been for a couple years now. So I think it's really cool. Very risky. They gave up a lot. It has a high chance in a way that it could go wrong. The Clippers did get a bunch of great picks. And, if we go over to the Clippers side, that's why I give them an A for this trade. Um, you know, Kawhi had a great year. They get all these assets. He's 35 years old with that injury history. And Brandon Ingram, he's still a good player. Obviously, he's not the best playoff performer usually, but people forget he was an all-star last year. And granted, he was a replacement for Steph Curry, but still, I mean, you get an all-star player, you get a potential role player with Grady Dick, who could, he's still young, 22 years old. This will also, what people haven't been bringing up as much is, if you trade Kawhi and it's only for picks, like, would we be positive that the Clippers would have been out of the relegation zone if it's just Darius Garland plus the young cast they have there? I think with Brandon Ingram, you can be that 4 to 10 seed and be out of that relegation zone. So I think just getting Ingram in that aspect is super important. And also, we'll bring up Boston later, but the package you get for Kawhi is like way better than what Boston got for Jaylen Brown. So I give him an A. Raptors, it's a wait and see. I feel uncomfortable with all they given up, but I respect it. They're going for it. So those are my thoughts.
I would say, I think as I've had time to think about it, I do think both sides won and respected. You can maybe make an argument the Raptors won a little bit more. It will depend how far they go in the playoffs moving forward. Um, because man, they did battle in the playoffs a lot. Um, they definitely gave some teams some running. It makes sense that you would trade Brandon Ingram out of all the players for Kawhi Leonard specifically, because Brandon Ingram is really known for not really doing too well in the playoffs. So to replace him with a guy like Kawhi Leonard and pairing him with guys like Scotty Barnes, um, to be honest
Dude,
with you,
Scotty Barnes is a name I couldn't think of. Sorry to cut you off. I was like, they have another really good
yeah,
guy. Who is it? Scotty Barnes, duh. Okay, go ahead.
yeah,
Sorry.
dude, to pair those two together with actually still holding majority of their good surrounding depth that they had, because they didn't have to really give up too much. Um, and player wise, picks, you can kind of make the argument the two unprotected first round picks that might come back to bite them a little bit depending on what the team looks like, because again, you don't really know what your team is going to look like in 2031 or 2033. To have both of those picks be unprotected is kind of scary, especially with how old Kawhi is now. Kawhi, I think, is like 35 at this point. Um, so by the time it's 2031, Kawhi is going to be at least 40, you know? So the likelihood of him still playing on the Raptors by the time he's 40, especially with all the injuries he's had, I would be very shocked if Kawhi is still around by then. Obviously, Scotty might still be around by then, but you really don't know what the Raptors roster is going to be looking like at that time. This trade to me is definitely more of we're wanting to contend now. We feel like we have the guys on this team and this roster that paired well can make a championship run, which we'll have to see. Um, at this point, I know Kawhi Leonard is still a very, very good player. But after watching last year's playoffs and seeing him get locked up by Draymond Green, and older Draymond Green, which Draymond can still play really high level defense. But at the end of the day, I really wonder how much impact this is going to give the Raptors in all cases. Um, I don't think they are going to be going to the finals after this trade. You can maybe make the argument they're a championship contender. Um, but I don't know. I still think they might be one other good player away. But that's the thing. Maybe the Raptors know better than I do. Because I mean, you have Kawhi, you have Scotty Barnes. Um, I know they still have Jacob Podol on their team. They still, I think
RJ
Colin Murray
Barrett.
Boyles, right?
Yeah, Colin Murray Boyles.
Yeah,
Drafted Alan Graves,
I mean,
Jacoby Walter.
They're super high on Colin Murray Boyles. I mean, if he's that other guy that comes out and has a tremendous year, obviously he didn't have a lot of games played last season because he was hurt. But man, like if they're super high on him and he comes out of nowhere next season, I mean, shoot, I mean that might change my mind as well. I'm just kind of iffy on it because the only thing that really plays me at this point is the RJ Barrett fit, because they still have RJ Barrett at shooting guard. I wonder how all that is still gonna kind of fit, because I do feel like at shooting guard they could really still use another like 3 and D wing at shooting guard instead of RJ Barrett, because I feel like RJ Barrett doesn't really give them as much spacing as I would like to have around a person like Scotty Barnes. But and you still have Podol on your team as well, so would not be surprised if they move on from RJ Barrett and Jakob Pertl. But that's a wait and see type of thing. I don't know if they still have more moves to make this offseason. They might, or they're going to probably run with this current team that they have, see what it looks like, and then if they need to make any more moves, they will, because they still have a pretty good amount of assets and draft picks that they can still use if they feel like they can make a run. But they definitely need to make a run within the next 5 years. I mean, trading for a person like Kawhi Leonard, you're definitely locking yourself into a docket where it's like, okay, the next several years we got to compete, and all of our trades from now on and signings are to go win a championship.
Yeah, for sure. And like with Jakob Pertl, I think you have to keep him because his contract's pretty much untradeable just from
Yeah,
his
they just
production
re-signed him
standpoint and how
last
much
year,
his
didn't they?
contract is. Yeah, so and obviously like with Colin Murray Boyles, he showed that he was a playoff gamer as well last year. And so that's a great sign, especially as a rookie. And I'm pretty sure he was drafted in the late teens. That's
Yep.
off memory. I don't know if that was the case for sure, but you have him, and also like I feel way more comfortable with Scotty Barnes being the bona fide number 2 option. Because last year Brandon Ingram, Scotty Barnes, yeah, you want Scotty to be that number 1. Don't know if he's quite that kind of player. So you bring in a guy who you know for sure, okay, this is our number 1 player. Scotty Barnes is our number 2. You have clear identity in your roles now. I think that'll do them super well. And even going back to the Clippers with the Brandon Ingram contract, he has an expiring contract after this year. So it's a player option, $41 million. I'm assuming he will opt into that. We don't know for
Yeah,
sure,
he probably
but
will. This is probably his
it'll
last
be
really big contract.
Yeah, it'll be tradable, if it's expiring. So the Clippers, they gave themselves a lot of wiggle room with this, got all those draft picks like we mentioned. And yeah, they finally are doing that rebuild. I kind of like where their roster is sitting at right now. They have a lot of flexibility. So good for them, good for the Raptors. And we'll just have to see how this trade pans out in a couple years.
But trading for Brandon Ingram and Grady Dick, even though Grady Dick didn't have the best of seasons, Brandon Ingram had a really good regular season. Um, like I said, maybe not as playoffs well, but regular season he actually did really well. Um, Getting Brandon Ingram for Kawhi is still letting them be able to at least be competent where they can still compete, because you got to also keep in mind the Clippers picks, they don't have any for a couple years.
Yeah.
So they don't have their own. So with that being said, they kind of have to find this weird middle ground where it's like, yeah, we're sort of rebuilding, but we have to find ways to still compete on a yearly basis. At least try to maybe keep ourselves maybe around the play-in if we can, just because all their picks are gone because of all the trades that they made with their last team of Paul George and Kawhi Leonard that they tried to go on a championship run
That's
with.
true. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
good
was gonna
point.
pull up their draft picks, but I mean they don't, yeah, they don't have a lot of future draft picks. I know they gained
Hmm.
a couple. I think they gained like two firsts from the Pacers, or it could have just been the one, but they don't, yeah, dude, they don't own their own first round pick until 2030. So
Okay, that
they
makes more
have,
sense. So,
this is where the OKC still has their picks,
mhm.
and it's only top 5 protected. So like in
Is this
2020.
OKC's last pick? Is this almost over?
um
It's got to be almost over.
2027 is the last OKC one. Yeah.
Oh, thank
And
goodness.
that is the one that has the rights. So OKC has the rights if conveyed to OKC. Um it's protected 1 to 5. So if the Clippers get in the 1 to 5, they do get the pick back. So it's the same as this, like when they had the Pacers pick.
Okay,
Mhm.
yeah, that makes
So
sense.
actually getting Brandon Ingram makes sense in this new lottery, because you can still compete now. And dude, if you get in the play-in or even close to the play-in, we looked at the lottery stats. You actually have as good of a chance of getting a top 5 pick as the top 5 picks. So there's
Yeah.
a chance with them even being competent where they're trying to fight in the play-in spots around that seeding, they could still get a top 5 pick, which
Jeez.
makes sense. So I
Man,
mean,
just the lottery is going to be so fun this year.
and that's why this
Like when we
trade
get to
makes
see it
sense.
live. Oh, man, this is going to be
Yeah,
awesome.
and you already see teams making moves like these where it's like I can go get players like Brandon Ingram and be fine with it, and I'm still technically in a rebuild because I can compete for a play-in spot and see how well my team is right now, and then I can still go get a top 5 pick. So this makes sense.